What's with all these badass women in movies and TV who still need to be rescued by men? Or the ones who can defeat armies of muscle-bound henchmen bare-handed, but have to do it in skin-tight suits and high heels? And what's up with those badass women who never wanted or needed a man until our suave hero sexed her up, and then she dies? Welcome to the Outrider Podcast's 7-part series, Problematic Badass Female Tropes. I'm your host, Jason Quinn Malott, and I'll be talking with the writer, performer, and all-around badass who identified these tropes, my friend Jenn Zuko. So strap on some pasties and a merkin, and let's do this thing. Welcome to episode 2 of Problematic Badass Female Tropes, the Wonder Woman. So this is our second section, talking with Jenn Zuko about her 7-essay series on problematic badass female tropes, and I think we're doing good so far.
Well, you know,
in the first 30
much
seconds
to compare it to, so great.
So
Over on Writers HQ, let's not forget.
Yes, on Writers HQ.co.uk, and link, of course, will be in the show notes. Not that I ever really do very complicated show notes. I mean, I kind of want to be mysterious.
It gives you a certain mystique, right?
Right. So, one of the things I did before hopping here on the Skype machine with you was watch that Funny or Die video again.
Ah, yes. Okay, good.
And you know, I can, yeah, I get it. So tell us a little bit about the Wonder Woman.
Well, you're like, yeah, I get it. Anyway, tell us about it.
Was that sufficiently, masculinely condescending enough for you?
Yeah, anyway. Whatever, sweetie. Did you have something to say? Oh, my God.
Well, you're the authority here, so teach me, lady.
You know. All right. Well, you've watched the cute little video that I
watched the video, and of course I read the article because I am a good host and I'm following along. But
you did your homework.
I've actually read this one twice.
Whoa. Hey. Well, as those of you who have read these articles will be noticing, even if you've only read these two by now,
right.
I do this rhythm where I come up with, or I describe the example that I have in mind, at least one or two examples first before I describe the actual trope. And so instead of actually describing Wonder Woman, I described instead that comedy sketch. It was by Funny or Die. It was about the self-help group called The Women Who Didn't Love Wonder Woman.
Right.
And they're like the most hated group in the world. And of course, this came out right after the movie came out. So it was slightly more timely then. It was because all the enormous hype around the movie was still singing quite loudly at the time. And so it was even more funny at the time because everyone's like, I love it. It was so great. It's so groundbreaking, blah, blah, blah. But my whole thing is, well, you know, there's some major problems with her character structure. And I'm just talking about her in this 2017 movie, though you can certainly trace certain misogynistic issues back in when she first came out in the comics, which was I think in the mid 40s. Is that correct? I'm not sure. Right,
but yet the whole idea was Wonder Woman was to be a feminist model.
Yes, exactly. To be a feminist warrior, sort of one of the original social justice warriors in a way.
Right. And
then later on, when society became more liberated in the comics, she became less. She became just sort of the secretary to the Justice League. Like literally, she would stay behind at headquarters and fucking type their documents and whatever. So the character herself has been through a whole slew of different changes and everything. Wouldn't
Marston, the guy that created it, basing it on his wife and mistress, have taken that as a slap in the face?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. No, she was meant to sort of open up all of these.
I guess mistress isn't fair. That was more of a poly thing, wasn't it?
It was a poly thing, yeah. His partners, plural, yeah.
His lady partners.
Yeah, but so his lady parts. You're going to call it problematic lady parts, right?
Yeah, his problematic lady parts.
Wonder Woman is a problematic lady
parts.
So my thing with this particular trope is now in every single trope there is a bait and switch that happens where we're like, hey, yay, it's a strong character. Shut up. It's a strong character. Shh, it's a strong character.
Right.
Love her. Shh. And so this is one of the things where the hype and the society around it, the cultural reaction to it actually did that. We're like, sure, we'll swallow this amazing thing whole. And just because it's like in the character or the comedy sketch, one of the characters was like, oh, we're just supposed to automatically love her just because she's a female protagonist that isn't seen through a male gaze.
Right.
Shut the fuck up, you know? And I would actually argue that Wonder Woman in the 2017 movie, yes, she's the protagonist, which is great. I was worried when I went into the movie and I saw it, and I saw the guy character, the main male hero character, wash up on the shores of Themyscira.
Chris Pine.
The island of Chris Pine, called Captain Kirk. Oh God, what would Captain Kirk do in the?
What's the character's name? Steve.
I'm not a huge comics reader. I don't really know the comics super well. I know certain of the sort of cultural stuff surrounding it, but I'm not a big comic reader. I forget what his name is.
Yeah.
I only saw the movie once anyway, too. So, but anyway, but I thought, oh God, well, here's Captain Kirk washed up on the shore of an island filled with female warriors, all of whom are hot, by the way, which is another one of the problems there. Yeah. There's not a single woman on that island that isn't attractive in some way. But anyway, I thought, oh no, now it's going to be his story, no matter what the title of the movie is. But it wasn't. It actually was Diana's story. It was her. Right. She is the protagonist in that tale, and it's great. And her male compatriots in the war are assistants. They assist her. They do not take over the center of the story. She is the main person that takes all the action. And at the time, I was like, it's almost like a Doctor Who and companion kind of thing, where she doesn't. It's not as much like the old school Doctor Who, or actually this happens in the new ones too, where the companion just becomes sort of a Marion effect, where she just becomes something for him to save. But actually, like someone who helps out, someone who, her male, he does become a love interest, but he also
Trevor,
thank you.
Steve Trevor.
One of those characters with the two first names.
Right.
But he does have very important parts to play, but what he does not do is take over the main center of the fight that's central to the story. Right. But the problems that I was noticing with the Wonder Woman type trope characters is that they're very strong warriors. These are particularly warrior characters, like either soldiers or warrior types of some kind, or fighters of some kind. But they have sexuality shoehorned in there. Right. In other words, for the female warrior, sexuality is an issue, whereas when it's a male warrior, his sexiness doesn't really matter. Like, you may have stories about, oh yeah, there's a gladiator and he's wearing a skimpy thing and he looks hot, but it's not really it's a very minor thing for male characters. For a female warrior character, sexiness is either shoehorned onto her, where it's added, where it's not necessary. It's the whole trope of the D&D armor, like especially in video games, where the male characters they level up their armor and they get more and more protected, and the women still have these bikinis made of chainmail. It's that kind of thing where it's like, why does she have to be sexy in a particular way in order to be worth watching? Right. And then there's another way that this hypersexualization of the female character happens too, which is the eradication of sexuality, where if she is in fact to be very strong, to be very powerful as a warrior, she gets her sexiness completely taken away, or she gets masculinized, which I talk in more detail about in the trope that talks about one of the guys that more focuses on that sort of type of warrior. But so like the Wonder Woman in particular, it's like she's wearing heels. Right. And like that character in the sketch says, well, of course, sure, they're wedge heels, but they're still heels. Right. And this particular Wonder Woman character, she's slender. she's not fat, she's not stocky, she's not short, she's tall, she's willowy, she's slender, she's young looking,
right?
She's pale skinned. Let's go on with all of the stereotypes of female beauty. And so it's like, well, okay, she is a strong warrior, and that is true. So then why does she need all the sexiness there?
Right.
Why does all of that even need to be there? Would she be like that if she grew up on an island with only women? Would all of those women be all sexy? And they're somewhat diverse. The extras on Themyscira are somewhat diverse, at least, but they're all hot women.
So the basic problem then with the Wonder Woman trope is one of presentation and not so much situation, like it was with Marion. Yes. Situation. She goes from in one situation acting another way and acting a different way. This one's more about the presentation of the hero.
Yes, it's this thing that art historians and art critics call the male gaze. I would call it the heterosexual male gaze in particular.
Yeah.
Where she is meant to be looked at with a sexual lens. It's this hypersexualization of female characters. So it's either shoehorned onto her, like being hot is, I think I put it in the article, like, does the hotness of the ass preclude the badness of the ass? Like, why does that matter so much when it's a female warrior character? Because it seems like it's a pretty minor thing when it's a male character. It can be there, it cannot be. It kind of doesn't matter, though.
Yeah.
Unless being sexy has to do with a male character's storyline. Like, for example, like a James Bond. Part of his whole character and the way he is strong, the way he works his character is to be sexy. That's kind of part of how he has prowess.
Right.
That's part of what he works, in other words, in his spy-like antics.
So why wouldn't that sexiness, how would that sexiness work in a female heroine in that same fashion? Because you did bring up that recent spy movie with the
Atomic Blonde.
Yeah.
I think that's an example as far as how it does work in the other way. I think that's a positive example. Of course,
it's not just shoehorned onto her; it's one of the weapons that she uses.
It's one of her main things in her arsenal, and it's part of her character to groom her looks and to make sure she looks a certain way so that she can use that to her advantage, just the same way James Bond does. That's a part of her character. It's a part of what she's doing as a character. Like Wonder Woman, she is she grows up in this isolated island. There's why would she even be thinking in that way? It's not, her sexiness doesn't have anything to do with her character, in other words. And it's a twofold thing in this trope too. And again, the second part of the twofold, the twofold issue has to do with hypersexualization of women. The fact that being sexy or sexiness is just so all important to female characters.
Right.
And it's so rarely done in a way that doesn't make being sexy the central issue of a female character, especially a badass. In other words, like, if she's really super strong, then she can't be sexy because she's strong instead.
Right.
Which is like what the Gwendoline Christie characters that I bring up in the article are about. The one guy in Game of Thrones, her Brienne of Tarth character, the one person who thinks she's hot is looked at as a sort of comedy.
Only in the memes, I think. I mean, yeah, they made some jokes in the show, but they weren't
just the way the actor acts it.
The way the actor plays it.
He's very over the top, and he's very like, what a monster lady. It's like a joke. Because of course she's not sexy. Of course she can't be. Cameron's comments too. So it's like it's this dual thing. We're like, okay, well, so why can't Brienne of Tarth be hot? But at the same time, why does Wonder Woman have to be hot?
Right.
It's like, why is this like the central thing? Why is this either shoehorned onto her or taken away from her? Like Cameron's thing, where like, no, she shouldn't be so sexy because she should be strong instead. Okay, so how about maybe she's sexy when it matters to her character.
Right.
But that's not ever put into the Atomic Blonde thing. Like you mentioned, I think that's an exception. Having it be a part of her character is rarely done. Usually it's a male gaze kind of thing where it's just, the only reason a woman character is worth watching is if she's hot, if she's titillating, if she's to be looked at through a sexual lens.
Right. You, what I've been looking at over here while you've been talking and paying attention to you, but also trying to search, is the name of this actress who was in, and it's actually the only movie I can remember seeing her in. I'm pretty sure I might have seen her in others, but the only movie I can remember seeing her in is not an action movie. She doesn't play a heroine. She's just one of the many women in that John Ritter movie, Skin Deep.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
But she was also on the TV show American Gladiator.
Oh, really?
So she was a bodybuilder. And what I kept thinking is I was reading part of your article where you were talking about, particularly about how all the Amazons are slender and sexy. And I'm thinking, well, what would have happened if maybe the director had cast some women like this one, like her, and I can't find her name, as the Amazons? Would that have changed the tone? Because here's the thing, is that I understand the costumes, particularly in the Justice League movie, were a little bit skimpier than they needed to be.
Well, and the fact that they changed from the One Woman movie into that one.
But at least in the Wonder Woman movie, they were technically in line with what could be assumed to be standard Greek military armor.
Yes, they were. Mm-hmm.
From the era.
And
that was guards.
That was why there was a controversy when they changed in Justice League, because the costume designer was a woman for Wonder Woman. And so she's like, okay, well, they're all hot. We don't have any barrel-chested women. We don't have any pear-shaped women on that island. But at the same time, they're not also wearing chainmail bikinis. They're wearing actual armor, like you said. But then in the Justice League movie, it was a different costume designer and a different director.
Yeah.
Both of whom were male. I believe the costume designer was male as well. And so that completely changed, and suddenly they're in these like boob cup bikinis suddenly. Whereas before they were wearing actual authentic looking Greek armor, which is hella sexy. That's my point too. It's like, it's okay. Totally be hot and be a hot warrior for sure. But like, that is the central thing for female warriors, whereas it isn't usually in male characters, male warrior characters.
So what would be a good example of a female warrior character that gets it right, besides Brienne of Tarth and well, they don't really get it right with her either.
I think it's the opposite problem with the Brienne of Tarth character, is that
so
she is portrayed as like almost over the top, not sexy, so that she can be strong.
But my impression from watching the show, and I did watch the show.
Oh yeah, well, I watched some of it.
I watched everything. My sister kept trying to get me to watch it for years.
It's like boobs and dragons. What's wrong with it? It's great.
Yeah, tits and swords.
Tits and swords. And Jason Momoa.
It's only in a couple of the first 2 seasons or so, and then he dies miserably. But
briefly, yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Everyone dies, right? Doesn't everyone die?
And apparently he's an anti-book little douche, but that's okay. I mean, he's like twice my size, but he doesn't read books.
He just was a prank player on set, from what I hear.
But he abused books. That's a sin.
Yeah. No, it's not okay. There's nothing okay about that at all. He can do as many sexy hakas as he wants. You cannot make up for that. That's totally fine. Well, I mean, I can't think, besides the Atomic Blonde example that you bring up, I can't think of any others in particular, but what I would say is, if the character being super hot or not has to do with her character in particular, and has to do with her character's choices and not to do with the audience gaze, then I would say that's closer to being more okay.
Right.
If it's like, hey, warrior woman, whoa, isn't she sexy? It's this matter of being titillated
Right. So,
which is unfair to the strength of the character, or taking every possibility of hotness away, which is also unfair to the character. It's this hypersexualization.
Right.
And Atomic Blonde was meant to be a super cheesy, like female James Bond kind of Cold War, way over the top, Jason Bourne meets James Bond kind of thing, which in that case was completely a part of her character. But it didn't go overboard where she was wearing stiletto heel. You know what I mean? Her sexiness was appropriate to her character.
So was Gal Gadot's sexiness just all that problematic stuff, just the high heels? I mean, the rest of her armor was okay, right?
It was the fact that casting her fit every single unrealistic beauty stereotype that there was.
But it also fits the way Wonder Woman was originally drawn.
In the comics, yeah, that's true. It's the fact that the sexiness of the character didn't have anything to do with the character.
Right. So what about Xena Warrior Princess?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Where does she fall in this?
I would say that's
because she was not wearing heels. She was wearing boots.
Yeah, the gladiator sandals kind of thing, I think.
Right.
I think she had that kind of like tall sandal sort of thing, right? From what I remember. Like I was working as a sword fighter at Renaissance Festival back in the mid-90s, and for my birthday one year, the guys that I was fighting with gave me I had never watched the show before.
Right.
They gave me a fan club membership to Xena Warrior Princess because they're like, dude, you're totally Xena Warrior Princess.
So did you ever watch any of that?
Yeah, I did. I would think that's also closer to being okay because she doesn't think about she's not like watching her fight scenes in particular. It's not about titillation. Right. She's not portrayed as being like, ooh, it's like porn for the viewer. It's not really like that. She is wearing, she does sort of have the boob cut kind of thing, but it's not a shoehorned sexiness onto her. Mm-hmm. And then there are some character developments that happen where she does get romantically involved with certain characters, but that just happens because of her character making choices. Right. But especially in the beginning of the series, she's trying to redeem herself from being a horrible ruler and being a sort of having blood on her hands. And so she is going about the world being a warrior in order to sort of redeem that. And so she's pretty prickly, and she's not really portrayed as sexy. She's not portrayed as not sexy either, though. She kind of it's kind of neither. She's just herself. Right. And any sexiness that happens, like her later spoiler alert for a show that happened in the 90s. Her later relationship with her sidekick sort of gradually comes about, and it seems to me to be about character. Right. Now, I would say her sidekick starts to be a little bit, sexiness is shoehorned onto her a little too much. Like once she starts to be more of an active part of the show, suddenly her midriff is showing all the time and shit, which isn't really a part of that person's character. What's the sidekick's name again? Gabrielle. Xena and Gabrielle. Oh. So Gabrielle is sort of the Robin to Xena's Batman.
So do you think they shoehorned the sexiness onto her because it didn't really fit with Xena?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe they're like, we don't have enough midriff happening right now. Let's put it on Gabrielle.
Yeah. I don't remember her being able to carry that very well, though.
It just wasn't a part of, that's the thing. That was just for titillations, not part of the character. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like, it's not never okay to be sexy. Sure it is, of course. Right. And it's okay to not be sexy at all too. Like that's fine. But like the fact that the being sexy, either having it be shoehorned onto a character or be eradicated so that she can be strong. Mm-hmm. Those are both two sides of a hypersexualization coin. That's the problem. Right. Right. And just the fact that because like the comedy sketch, we're supposed to just automatically love Wonder Woman because she happens to be the central character in a superhero movie for the first time and who knows when. It's like, okay, great. No, that's great. Do celebrate that. And she was great. And the movie was great. Fights were great. A little too much CGI, but that's just my own taste. It's fine. Right. It's fine. But we just need to recognize that. Like, okay, look, there's a lot of
Well, that's
like
this
little
is the thing.
sexy things that are like put onto her that aren't a part of her character. It's just to titillate the audience.
Right. To take a little sidetrack into all the times when we do comic book movies and people complain about CGI.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Right. Because it's like, these are comic book characters that have superheroes. And if you read the comic books, they do outlandish things. The fight scenes are outlandish. And
for sure.
To pull off some of those...
How do you portray superheroes, right?
Right.
They're supposed to be super powered. Yeah.
To pull off some of those stunts and those fight scenes in a live action setting without CGI, there's only so much wire work and stuff that you can pull off without it really looking kind of ridiculous.
Exactly.
And so you have to do this CGI stuff.
When it's a superhero movie and they do a good mix where it's not completely so computerized that it looks like nobody has any weight to them. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's not like you say, it's not complete wire fu where you're like, oh, look, I can see the wire. Like you can almost see the wire.
Right.
And it looks unrealistic.
Yeah, but it looks unrealistic because they're suspended in air for just a little bit too long. They look like they have weight, but they shouldn't do that. No.
Yeah. Like I like a good combination. And if it's a superhero movie, I will certainly not want actually to have all of the stunts be practical stunts because that's just not practical because they're superheroes. Like the Thor movies seems to have a good combination. The Wonder Woman did have a good combination of the two. Yeah. It's just as a stunt person, I like to see the people doing it, but people don't have superpowers. Superheroes
do not have superpowers.
You have to add some CGI. You just do. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but the CGI Hulk is quite a bit more impressive than Lou Ferrigno. God bless Lou Ferrigno.
True. That is true.
Fantastic Hulk, but, he looks like a bodybuilder from the 1970s. Yep. He does not look like a superhero.
Nope.
So I'm fine with that. That's a little side thing into my other field, which is the stunt coordination thing. So that's fine. Yes, I accept that.
Well, yeah.
If there's a good combination, if it's not too computery and not too stupid looking. Right. So does that argument make sense in my article? That there's this kind of dual problem with the hypersexualization.
It does, and that's one of the things that I often find comedic. Is in certain, video games and if you're ever a reader of heavy metal.
Oh,
the world's foremost illustrated fantasy magazine.
Not for a long time.
Still really good. They still occasionally get some really good stuff in there. But that is kind of, I think, it's one of the more contemporary sources of the iron bikini trope.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the classic Boris Vallejo fantasy depictions of Conan and all that stuff. That my beloved genre of fantasy has a very turgid reputation for its depictions of its females.
The most famous heroine from any of the heavy metal comics is Tarna, who has the bikini armor.
Yeah.
But she rides a dragon and all this other stuff like that. She's a total badass. But
she burns her thighs on that dragon, man. You gotta have some.
But
thigh plates.
She totally has no armor on her whatsoever. Yeah. And then
there's a long-running joke about, especially in video games, because people are talking about feminism in video games a lot these days. But there's this long-running joke about like the two characters walk into the armor. They're about ready to upgrade their armor, and the one character
I think Funny or Die or maybe College Humor did a sketch about that.
Oh, they did like a live-action sketch, right? That's right. Yeah, and like the armor's like, here you go, lady. She's like, what? This doesn't cover any of my vital organs. What are you talking about? Why is this +2 more protection? It just is. How come he gets to wear a plate over his chest? Because male fantasy.
True. Huh.
And why have a strong female character unless you can like check out her midriff? Or if that's not the point, then completely make her totally not.
Not attractive, not sexy?
Yeah. which I also go into more detail of in the one of the guys trope 2 nights later. I think that's number 6 or something like that. But anyway, it's just a matter of let's make the sexiness part a part of the character. Why is it so hypersexualized whenever there's a female character, especially one that's featured,
right?
Or central, which is hardly ever happens. That's why I named it the Wonder Woman, because it's pretty rare to find a central protagonist, even character who is a female warrior. That kind of
I think it's becoming more common.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, particularly in the last maybe 20 years. I mean,
like the actual central. There's a lot of great pivotal characters, especially that have happened, like you're saying, in the last 20 years. But it's pretty rare to find a female character that is the protagonist.
Well, yeah.
As opposed to the protagonist's partner.
Those zombie movies with Mila Jovovich as I think it's Mila.
Oh yeah, what is that?
Resident Evil.
Resident Evil, thank you. I was like,
right.
All our listeners are like, Resident Evil!
You fucking nerds!
You guys need to give your nerd cards back. You come up with Resident Evil in the first.
Well, I'm not a big sci-fi. I mean, I read heavy metal and I have a cat yelling at me. Hold on a second.
I can hear her. She's very darling. Do you want to be the central protagonist on this podcast,
She
Kitty?
does. She wants a sexy bikini armor.
She's a strong female warrior. Oh,
she's a strong female pain in my ass.
Yeah, right. No kidding. I know. I had 3 female cats when I was married.
See?
Oh, you sing so nicely. We're going to keep all this. We're not going to cut any of this, by the way.
Right. Well, she has something to say about Wonder Woman, apparently.
Yay.
But, so yeah, you have the Resident Evil woman that kicks ass.
And again, she's in a skin-tight thing all the time.
Well, not always. I mean, the one movie that I've tried to catch up on those because I kind of like them. But I know in the first one, yeah, she's in a dress. But in the other one, she's not. She's more,
Isn't she like in a cat suit? That's how I see her depicted most of the time.
Yeah, in the first one, she's in kind of a dress through a big chunk of it because she wakes up in a house that she was, living in.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a reason for that.
Right.
What's the remake of?
And then there's the one where she's in the desert, but she's wearing, normal looking, combat gear.
And it is normal looking. There's no midriffs going on. It's not skin tight. It's not some Lara Croft shit.
I don't know if her midriff is showing, but you kind of do want. Well, you're the fighter coordinator. Do you want loose and flowing, or do you want skin tight to move?
Well, if she's in classic tactical gear, then it would be kind of neither. She'd have big utility belts and body armor, and her fatigues wouldn't be tight, but they wouldn't be flowing either. I mean, It depends on what's appropriate for the character. Like, what is she choosing? What is she choosing to wear? Like, is she choosing to show her midriff? If so, why? You know what I'm saying? Like, as long as it's not just an arbitrary thing that the male costume designer is like, oh, let's show her boobs.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what is this character wanting to wear herself, and for what reason? If it is particular choices, like, maybe I'm putting on an evening gown because I am going to a black tie event.
Right.
Like, that's different.
Right.
Than having it be just automatically shoehorned onto her because we can't be looking at a woman unless she's hot.
Right. Right.
If she's wearing tactical gear, then she's wearing tactical gear, and there's nothing sexy about that. It's very bulky and protective.
Yeah. Or you could wear semi-tactical gear, but it's not necessarily bulky, but of the moment, of the cobbled together kind of thing. I keep thinking of I usually play a woman character when I play Fallout.
Oh, yeah.
And I tend to go for the combat gear, the Brotherhood of Steel fatigues, which are the ones that usually see characters wearing when they're inside power armor.
Oh,
which
right.
is the skin tight kind of flight suit looking thing, and then you put armor on top of that.
Right.
And And that's skin tight because it's just...
Because you put armor on top of it.
Because you put armor on top of it.
It's like warming and protective in a different way. But it's not like Lara Croft, who has like barely a top on.
A pair of shorts and a tank top and is armed to the teeth and somehow...
And gun holsters and bare thighs. It's like, you know.
Well, you know, I guess if you're raiding tombs in the jungle, it helps to be cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I want my legs to be exposed to all the bugs that I'm hiking through. All the poisonous adders and shit.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily wrong for a character to be sexy, but it has to be for a reason.
Well, yeah, I guess it sounds kind of silly, but it seems as if there's utilitarian sexiness and then there's whimsical sexiness, or not really whimsical sexiness, but...
Well, I mean, just think about like, imagine that you're a badass warrior woman in real life. Like, what would you wear in certain situations? You wouldn't wear Lara Croft's outfit in combat. You wouldn't do that. You might wear, like in Wonder Woman, she wouldn't be wearing heels.
Yeah.
But the scene where she goes to the party to try and infiltrate to go find the major bad guy, she wears a gorgeous, lovely, well-fitted to her beautiful form evening gown.
Right.
Which, of course, that's, you know, that's what you wear when you go to a...
And somehow managed to be squeezing that sword between her butt cheeks. Because
I know,
did you ever see that?
So many people tried to do that after that movie came out. It was like, don't do it.
Don't do it.
I mean, unless you have a sheath.
There was somebody that showed you like the picture of the thing, and then drew it, and then drew like a cutaway to show where the sword would have to be for it to fit on that dress. And it's like right down between her butt. It's like... No, that's not going to work.
I mean, even if she had a scabbard down there, that wouldn't be very comfortable at all.
Yeah, the only way to keep that in that position is to clench real tight.
She has an extra strap under her.
Right.
Bra. Oh, no, but she didn't because she has a backless dress. Anyway.
Exactly. Exactly. She's holding that sword in place entirely with her butt cheeks.
So there would be a way to portray that, where this is a character who's trying to go to a black tie party. She wants to bring her sword with her to kill the bad guy.
Right.
So how do you design it? Not like that.
Not like that, no.
I mean, it's not a long sword. It's a shorter Greek style sword, but you know, hey, still. She's holding that thing in place with her butt. That's the only answer to that question. If I'm going to teach movement class, which I'm going to tomorrow, I'm going to be wearing like yoga pants and like a bra to hold my boobs in my shirt and like stuff that's like good for that. And then when I go out with my partner and we go out to a classy pub on the town, I might want to wear a short skirt and some heels because my legs are fucking fab. So, but like, I'm not going to always be wearing those heels and showing my legs off no matter what I'm doing just because I happen to have smoking hot legs. Right. Because that's just not, I mean, why would I do that? It's so.
Well, that's a thing that I've often find interesting because, one, costume design, you know, should be rational to the situation. And granted, it's fun to look at, you know, these fantasy drawings with women in their iron bikinis just because, you know, it does look interesting in one fashion or another. But
well, I mean, costumes are they do several things for character. They show the character's rank, they show a character's socioeconomic status, they show their occupation, they show the time period that they are living in, they show their environment, they show mood, they show all kinds of stuff. So
but what I'm getting at is that, you know, yes, this is kind of why I know that they are shoehorning sexiness onto something, but I don't get why there's this extraordinary desire or need or perception that they have to do this. Because, you know, you can take these two actresses, you can take any actress out there in Hollywood, you know, leading lady type as you know, they have all the personal trainers and all that stuff out there going on. And because of that, whatever you put on them that fits both, fits their body and fits the function of the character. So you take, a woman, you slap her in, say she's just a soldier, you slap her in a standard military uniform. Mm-hmm. She's going to look better than the average person that you slap in that uniform.
Because she's a Hollywood actor.
Right, because she's got the personal trainer and stuff like that, and that's what they do. They make themselves into these
examples of
superhuman examples of the human form. So so I don't quite understand. It's not that I don't understand. So I guess what I'm saying is that it's not that I don't understand the point you're trying to make with the trope, but what I don't understand is how, particularly in this era, people continue to get caught in the trap of making things impractically sexy.
Right. Yeah.
Following the 1960s Star Trek costuming theme, which was, to make the in order for it to be sexy, it has to it some ratio of how soon you think it's going to fall off of her.
Exactly. Right.
Because I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah. It seemed well, and that's why I wrote. A lot of reasons why I wanted to write these articles too is because it's almost like, like in our last episode, we were talking about how it's almost like you don't notice it because it's so just ingrained.
Right.
And I wonder that it's just because people maybe still design that shit like that because it's almost just ingrained. And that's just kind of how they're so used to it that they can't even conceive of doing it in a better way because it's just so it's so a part of the skeleton of these characters. It's just so inherent in our culture.
Right. So how is it that a woman director and a woman costume designer make the high-heeled warrior boot mistake?
Well, same answer I just gave. I think it's just because it is so ingrained, and even with those women, with this very pioneering kind of movie, which is a female-led superhero movie.
Did they make that
There
decision?
is still a part of, probably, I don't know. I haven't read any interviews with the director in particular talking about that in particular, but what I would imagine being a woman in showbiz myself is just, and being in warrior arts myself, is that there probably is a not so small part of them that goes,
we have to get the guys to watch.
We have to do something to make her hot. We have to. If we don't make her hot at all, then she's not gonna be,
But
it's this whole thinking that it's necessary.
Right.
Or maybe they just they looked at the old comics and were like, well, that's what she looks like. I can't imagine it was that simple, though, because it's such a revolutionary kind of movie, and they changed so much about it, and they had so much modern commentary about all kinds of things in it. So I can't imagine there's
but that's kind of something that comics do. I mean, we don't have the same Batman that we had when he was originated in the 40s and 30s. We don't have the same Spider-Man that we had.
I was about to say that. Yeah, no, it's all different.
And comic books are always reflecting and commenting upon the society of the moment.
Well, and I didn't
find those aspects of, but I guess you always kind of, particularly with comic book movies, and this may have, and this kind of we're kind of drifting away from the badass female thing. And focusing on that, and really kind of going on with the comic book movie side of the aspect, which is not really related to the trope. But when you do something like Wonder Woman, like these comic book characters, if you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, no matter what aspect of them you hope to change or keep or alter. Because
here's what I put forth about that, because I think what you're saying is that because it's a comic book movie, it means, and especially superhero comic book, we're talking about portraying a fantasy.
Well, no. What I'm talking about is fidelity to the way the character is imagined.
Right. Okay.
So it's like, part of the reason that one Wolverine movie is seen as a total travesty and why at the end of the second Deadpool movie, Ryan Reynolds has they travel back in time and kill that version of Deadpool is because that whole muted, that version of Wade Wilson in that Wolverine movie is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's wrong. It is incorrect for the character.
Right. And so it's not faithful to the original.
And so the thing is that, yes, you can do all sorts of other things with Wonder Woman. They could have done things to put her in flatter shoes. They could have done other stuff like that. But there was a certain look that she had to have.
Yes, absolutely.
In order to be Wonder Woman.
Yep, that's true.
Otherwise, you would just piss off the purists.
Well, and that's what happened with a slightly earlier TV show. What was that, in the early aughts that tried to do a Wonder Woman TV show? And they put her They put her in pants. And everyone's like, nope.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with having the Greek inspired armor with the American flag emblems on it. That's totally, like you said, that's totally Wonder Woman. That's what she is doing, and that's great. But and yes, this is a fantasy. We have the island of the Amazons, which is an island filled with fantasy women who are all warrior women. That's a great fantasy. But whose fantasy is it? Right. Whose fantasy is it? Well, it could be any number of people's fantasy. In other words, it shouldn't just be heterosexual man's fantasy.
That island of angry armed women is not my fantasy.
Oh no, they're all ideal. They're skipping through the grass.
I don't care. I don't care if I wouldn't care if they had if their armor was pasties and a merkin. If they were angry and armed, that's not my fantasy.
I don't think they get angry until the man lands on their island, TBH. But hey,
that's going to be the subtitle of this episode: "Pasties and a Merkin."
Pasties and a Merkin. That's the subtitle of my memoir about my days in burlesque.
Pasties and a Merkin.
The story of Jen's days as Valkyrie Rose in burlesque. AKA Pasties and a Merkin.
Pasties and a Merkin.
And a chainmail bra. I just performed in a chainmail bra just Friday night.
That's all you need is pasties and a Merkin.
I did have pasties. I did not have a Merkin, though. Today's burlesque wants the opposite of Merkin. But anyway.
Oh, I'm so tired.
Anyway, so that's the point. It's this heterosexual male gaze.
Right.
So.
And that's problematic even outside of this trope. Is that?
Yeah, it's
so much.
Mm-hmm. Because what that does is it undermines the strength of the character.
Right. And it
reverts her into a sexual object and not into a badass character.
Therefore, something
that's pretty obvious,
obsessed over or fantasized about, rather than to have any simple, direct authority over her own existence.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said, Pasties. So that's our partnership name in this podcast. You're Pasties and I'm Merkin.
Merkin.
No, it's the other way around. You have the beard. So you're Merkin and I'm the Pasties. So Merkin, any other questions questions for Pasties about this trope?
Episode 2. I'm going to jot that down. Episode 2.
We have completely devolved into giggling about pasties and Merkins. I'm here talking about feminist, misogynist tropes. Feminism and misogynist tropes. And here we are just dissolving into...
But that's exactly what this trope arises out of. It's that taking a powerful female warrior character and hypersexualizing. The body is completely exposed. Her armor is pasties and a merkin, and somehow that will save her in combat while her male partner is decked out because in full plate mail. Why? Because he's the real pussy.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, right. So that's
Actually, I
totally not
saw
right.
a great comic. It was a couple years ago when all this stuff was coming out. There's a great website, by the way. It's called Escher Girls. And it doesn't talk specifically about the armor issue, although it does sometimes. But it's called Escher Girls, like Escher the artist.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows all of the art, the misogynistic art tropes about females in comics.
Right.
They have all these names for all these different poses that these warrior women find themselves in, like the boobs and butt pose, like the boobs and the butt both are facing the camera.
Right. How do you do that without breaking your back?
Yes. And then there's like the centaur pose where they like have this lengthened torso so that the butt is arched more, and they have the no internal organs version. Right. And so there's all these like things. And they talk about the armor issue too. But I saw this comic recently up there. It was like, how come you're out? It was this male warrior going, "Hey, friend warrior, why are you out here in armor like that? Like, aren't you exposed? Like, aren't you like totally exposed? Your midriff is completely like open to arrows." And she's like, "It's my womb power." And then it shows these like arrows flying at her belly, and then it just goes womb, and the arrows are all like repelled by this magic power of her womb.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's silly. But real, but real.
Well, I think that went well.
I agree, Merkin.
Yes. And next week we will do, oh crap, what is number 3? Next week is...
I didn't look. I only wrote them. I don't have them memorized.
Well, I had them called up on a different browser, and then I had... Oh, it says right here at the end of your article.
Oh,
no, it doesn't.
Well, aren't I nice? Mother knows best?
Yeah, I think so.
No, it's down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
I think.
And
yep, down the rabbit hole.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yes. We're going to talk more about titillation.
All right.
Merkin and Pasties. More about titillation with Down the Rabbit Hole.
The Outrider Podcast is recorded by me, Jason Quinn Malott, and cleaned up by my badass producer, Heather Ann Eden. The songs Choose and Adventure and Break and Mend used in this series are by Wichita-based band Cartwheel off their new EP, Best Days, and are used by permission of the copyright holder, Kristen Chapman. You can get Cartwheel's EP on Apple Music and Spotify, so visit them at www.cartwheel.band.